It should come as no surprise to anyone who watches this channel that I'm a big fan of the Professor Layton series. And if it does, well, I don't really know what to say. Like, why are you still here? But it should also come as no surprise that I absolutely cannot stand the most recent release in the series, Layton's Mystery Journey, Katrielle and the Millionaire's Conspiracy. Now, my frequent bashing of LMJ has actually gotten me some criticism in the past. Surely mocking the only official new Layton piece of media that Level 5 have released since Azran Legacy is counterproductive, right? Well, I disagree. And so today I thought we'd all come together, have a nice sit down and a little chat, all about why I absolutely cannot stand Layton's Mystery Journey. When I first discovered Curious Village, I fell in love with its charm and its style. The art style was similar to the Tintin books I'd been getting from the school library at the time, the music was unique and unlike any style I'd ever really heard before, and the setting was similar to the kind of place where I grew up. Oftentimes when I'd be walking to and from school, I'd wish I'd find some sort of treasure in a bush or on the road that would start a little mystery for me, just like in the game. As the series developed through Pandora's Box and Lost Future, I fell more and more in love with the characters, soundtrack, locations and stories. The prequels were a little in my opinion, but it was still nice to be able to travel with Layton and Luke. I mean, just look at Miracle Mask. The writers seriously suggested that Randall fell into a big mystery pit with a convenient lake at the bottom, got washed up in a nearby village that somehow wasn't searched by Henry, lost his memory almost completely and then was approached by a man dressed as a Victorian coat rack who said,
"Yeah, so all your friends basically hate you and have stolen your life." Lol.
And he went,
"Huh. Well, I guess that must be true. Time to go flood the local Las Vegas with sand then."
Funnily enough, Miracle Mask Twist is actually probably the most realistic of the whole series though, with the miracles turning out to be not insane wizard magic, but the kind of thing you'd see Ben Hanlon perform at Butlins in Skegness. Azran Legacy didn't really do much to redeem itself either. Not only is the entire game a B&M bootleg copy of Castle in the Sky, the only way the devs could make Layton's life even more tragic than having his girlfriend die in a freak clock accident was to have him die himself in a magical beam of light. But don't worry, the local Irish girl who's just been stabbed over an old church has decided that the human race is decent enough to live for another decade or two, and so everyone can keep on living. Remember how this started with an inheritance dispute? But that was it. The series had finally come to a close, and with an open ending, fans could interpret the future of Layton and Luke however they wanted. And everything was fine. The world moved on. Fast forward now to 2016, and me and my mate Matt are in a Tesco Express on Lincoln High Street, getting toilet roll and other essential stuff for the house. While I was waiting for Matt to pay for his stuff though, I stood outside and checked my phone, and was surprised to see that Level 5 had revealed another Layton series game was in development. Hino himself had confirmed that it would be a new entry in the series, instead of a spin-off like Mystery Room or Layton 7, and would be treated to new characters, locations and music. But then the news came in that Layton wasn't actually going to be in it. What? How'd you have a Layton game without Layton? Initially I thought they were going to be giving Flora a game, but when the trailer dropped with Katrielle I was a little disheartened, but still excited to see where the developers had decided to take the series. The game was to feature many smaller mysteries that wove into one riveting plot, and instead of playing as the Professor, we'd be following his daughter, Katrielle, as she tried to find out where he was and why the dog can talk. Yet neither of those things were ever really addressed. There was no mention of Luke, Flora or Emmy, no mention of Don Paolo or Descalay, no mention of Chelmy, Grosky, Barton, Pavel, Aldous or even Layton's parents, Roland and Lucille. Surely they'd be involved if their son had disappeared, right? The only characters to make a return were Granny Riddleton, Statch and Scaffin, Dean Delmona and Benny. Not exactly the first ones I'd think of, to be honest. Character-wise, there wasn't really any depth like in the original games. No one had any real risks they were facing or some big family secret hidden away other than Ernest, but I'll get to that in a bit. Katrielle frequently leaves the crime scene to go scoff her face at the local restaurants, Ernest doesn't really do much but simp for Katrielle, and the dog just chats bare shit and rattles out rubbish puns like he's auditioning for the Family Guy writing team. Over on the supporting cast, you've got Inspector Dumbfuck, Angsty Miss Marple, the Daily Mail, Makeshift Pavel, and a bunch of rich arseholes who somehow don't realise that the man who saved the world from an evil gypsy curse, the rich white boy in a pimped out Howl's Moving Castle, is not really able to take on a little request like finding out who's been cosplaying as a big rat in the alleyway behind Greg's. Gameplay isn't very exciting either, with the events playing out as just a bunch of randos living a nice airy life, wandering around and annoying the police by hanging around crime scenes and outsmarting them with batshit theories that somehow turn out to be true, until the police commissioner gets jealous and frames Katrielle for literal murder.
Oh God, somebody's stolen the clock hand off the face of the Elizabeth Tower! However will Londoners tell the time again?
Actually I think you'll find it was just a big biscuit the whole time, so nothing to worry about.
But what about that double murder-suicide on the riverside earlier? Surely that was real?
Nah, just some cheeky promo for the River Festival, lol.
Okay, but what about that incident at the cinema where the final scene was stolen from the projection room? Could it have been a dispute during the production? Or has a masked intruder really made off with an irreplaceably and highly expensive piece of cinema history?
Nah, fam. A parrot took a big fat dump on the film roll. It had to be binned. Mate, oh. As long as all the main characters from that case wound up in the same room crying and hugging it out, everything could be forgiven, and the world would go back to normal. Even when Ernest revealed he was a massive fraudster trying to scam the 7 richest people in the city out of their entire bank balance because he misunderstood one thing when he was a child. Now that's a conclusion. The puzzles all vary in difficulty, or rather in confusion, with some being the obvious answer, and some being some ancient Mayan mindfuck that can't be solved without a basic understanding of theoretical physics, the Latin language, and bus repair. This could be because Professor Targo, the original puzzle creator, had sadly passed away by the time of the game's release. But you'd think he'd not be the only person in the world capable of creating genuinely clever puzzles. Right? Take Puzzle 16 for example, at a crossroads. The puzzle states that you need to choose a route to take once you've reached a fork in the road. Both routes are the same distance to the destination, but one of them is always busy, so it takes longer to get there. Which route should you take? Now, if everyone else genuinely takes the busy route, then the quiet route is obviously the right answer. But if everyone else knows that the busy route is usually busy and takes the quiet route, making it busy, then the original busy route is the right answer. But if everyone knows that the quiet route is going to be busy because the people that would have taken the old busy route are now taking the quiet route, and so they decide to take the busy route assuming it'll be quiet, then the quiet route is the right answer. But if everyone thinks that the busy route will become the quiet route, which will then become the new busy route, both routes would take the same amount of time to progress down because traffic would be evenly split across both routes. So the answer is neither. Right? Wrong. According to the game, the answer is to take the usual busy route because everyone's going to take the quiet route assuming it'll be quiet. Thankfully, only you think like this, otherwise there'd be absolute carnage on the roads. And Jesus Christ, is busy even a real word anymore? I'm losing my head, man. Talking about the soundtrack, I was never really a big fan of the soundtrack changes in the original games, from the simple accordion, French horn and marimba in the original trilogy to a full orchestra in the prequels. The live versions in the original soundtrack were special because they weren't like the rest of the songs in-game, but making every song have that level of power meant that very few songs stood out as special. In LMJ, the soundtrack lacks atmosphere, and I feel like it's been reworked to be, well, mucho kawaii, woo! Batman Rag, for example, features obnoxious horns and comical timpanis in a bad attempt to create a noir action theme that plays on repeat for most of the case. Comical Quizzical Quest feels more like a medieval RPG theme than the kind of thing you'd hear while tracking down criminals on London streets, literally using a blown bottle as one of the instruments. Katrielle's theme, however, does fit very well as a title theme, and the callback to the Full Sense theme is a nice touch, even if a little odd. The problem though is a theme like this with so much oomph and power and menace behind it really doesn't fit with a game that has so little at stake throughout it. Even vocally, the game sounds a bit flat. Katrielle, for example, sounds like she's trying to whisper and scream at the same time, like she wants to stay up and play Fortnite, but her mum's gone to bed in the next room.
Hey! Shut the fuck up!
The dog, on the other hand, sounds like a really crappy impression of Winston Churchill, with a mouthful of damp kitchen roll and mashed potatoes, for some reason. One thing I will admit the game was very good at was teasing me into thinking something big was about to happen in the plot, and then ultimately just not doing that. In the case where you visit Gressenheller, Inspector Hastings can be found in the foyer, blocking the corridor that led to where Layton's office was in the prequel trilogy. When I noticed that, I was so excited to progress that case, as I believed that if we got Hastings to move, we'd be able to investigate Layton's office. But that never happened. Similarly, when visiting Scotland Yard, I thought we'd get the chance to speak to one of the many police characters from the original games, knowing that Barton had become commissioner by the time of Mystery Room. Yet once again, there wasn't even a single reference to any of the old characters. Even the building itself was completely changed because there was too much crime and it had to be rebuilt? Okay. It was only after Ernest's reveal in Richmond Court that I thought the game had finally picked up pace. We'd completed all the little cases at the start of the game, and now the mystery was really about to begin. And then the credits started. Ultimately though, my biggest problem with LMJ is that it feels almost like Level 5 wanted to create an entirely new puzzle series. Yet they were worried that it wouldn't sell enough copies on its own, so let little Katrielle ride on the coattails of the infamous Professor Herschel Layton, knowing full well that if they slapped his name on the cover, audiences both at home and abroad would lap it up like a really good metaphor. So now, I hear you all shouting, if you're going to be so critical of LMJ, what would you have done? How would you have done this better? Well, to be honest, I'm no game designer, and I don't really claim to be, but this is what I would have done. Let's say we're about 10 years after the events of Lost Future. After saving the Prime Minister and London from danger, Herschel is still inundated with requests to solve cases all across the world, though it's taken a toll on his actual career and he has to decline each time. As such, Flora then decides to take up those offers, having travelled with the Professor before and wanting to live life with a bit more action. This would allow Level 5 to market to the same audience if they wanted to, just with an existing character in the spotlight, instead of Katrielle. The game follows Flora as she gets started as a private investigator and proves to her critics that she has what it takes to solve cases just like Layton. Instead of a rushed plot crammed into the last half hour of gameplay like LMJ, Flora notices that all the cases she's investigating are related while solving them, and discovers a conspiracy to rob the richest people in London of their wealth while distracting them with smaller mysteries. At this point, you could even link back to the Richmond Diamond story from LMJ, with that being the motive as to why someone wants to target the super rich. But instead of the assistant being the villain, make it someone that could be a recurring antagonist in the series, like Don Paolo or Desclay were to the original games. With the help of retired policeman Inspector Chalmy and deduction from Luke abroad in the States, can Flora take down the villain once and for all? We'll never know. I guess at the end of all this, you could just call me a traditionalist, because change is scary, and we must avoid change at all costs if we ever want our children to feel safe in the scary modern world of Apple Watches and HDMI cables. But when you create something that's meant to carry on the legacy of an existing product, and then change everything but the name, is it really the same series anymore? Hey gang, DearestHershel here. I hope you enjoyed this little analytical video. I know it's a little, or a lot different to the usual chaos you'd expect to find on this channel, but I hope you liked it nonetheless. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe and slap the bell if you want to see more Layton themed videos. It really helps me out and lets me know what kind of things people want to see. Until next time though, see you later gang.